Hey folks, Will Owen here with JetBoatPilot.com. In today's video, we're going to do the installation process for the brand new Perfect Pass system, which we're considering more of a plug-and-play style as compared to the old servo style for previous year models. This is something brand new. We're super excited about it. This basically gives you the ability to install a Perfect Pass system on newer style Yamaha boats, 2006 through current 21 footers, 2012 through current 19 footers, all 24 footers, all your FSH models. Anything that has the throttle position sensors can use this particular setup here with this kind of throttle by wire. If you have an older style like the MR1 style engines, 23 footer, all the 23 footers are going to have traditional MR1 motors that will not work with this particular system. You'll need to buy the previous system that has the servo motors. That's for a different install video. Today we're going to do the installation process for the brand new throttle by wire setup here. So what you see behind me here is a 2018 Yamaha 212X. We're really super excited about this because previously you could not install a Perfect Pass system on a 212X because of the pumps for the ballast bags that kind of got in the way, so it was difficult to do. Now we can do this with a 212X, so I'm really excited about that. Well, first of all, before we get into the install, show you some of the things that are going to come in the box, as well as some of the tools that you're going to need to do your installation, and we'll try to follow through step by step. I've already done the unboxing here, and what you can see on the swim platform, you're going to get several different bags. The main pouch you see here, this is going to be your throttle by wire cables, your throttle position system cables, throttle position sensor cables. All that's packed in one pack. You're going to get some zip ties and various butt connectors. You're going to get the brain box and the GPS puck. And you're also going to get either a ram mount with a 5-inch display, like an external display, or you're going to get a 3.5-inch round display that would go inside your dash. This is for you guys that have the older 21s or some of the older 20 or 24s prior to the Connect system. If you have the Connect system, you're going to want to choose the 5-inch external display. If you have the older style with a 3.5-inch gauge, you can use that simple 3.5-inch gauge replacement, which we'll show probably in a different video. Today we're going to be installing with the 5-inch external because this boat has the Connect system. That gauge we've already installed in this video, so you'll see it in a later portion of the video. It's also going to come with a ram mount, which is cool because you can install that and kind of position it where you want. We'll see that later in the video. Tools that you're going to want in this install, I would recommend probably having a heat gun if you're going to use some heat shrink, roll of paper towels. We're using a side drill like you see here, cordless. Get you some kind of shop towel. You're going to need a pair of pliers. We use a ratchet. On this install, this is going to be a 9mm socket deep well and also an 11mm socket deep well. That's going to help us out when we're doing our wiring to get the wire back behind the gauge cluster. You'll see it in just a minute here when we do the 5-inch display. Found a way to install it without having to cut any holes, which is really cool. So that'll help us with that. Zip ties, we got an X-Acto blade. I've got some lubrication here. This is going to be important when we're doing the kind of channeling those cables. We'll see that in a little bit here. Primer 94, you don't necessarily have to have the Primer 94, but I like to have it because we're going to be adding some PSA today, and I like to give it a little extra bond. If you don't have Primer 94, just simple PSA is probably going to work fine, but we do it so much, I just like to have it around. If you want to get this, this is on Amazon, Primer 94. This just increases the bond strength when you add an adhesive, like a pressure-sensitive adhesive like we'll be using in some of these portions of the video today. We're using a flathead screwdriver. We've got a Sharpie. I've got a roll of masking tape here, various butt connectors, some electrical tape, wire strippers, and also a work light. So those are the things that are going to be necessary for our installation. We're going to break this up into 3 sections. We're going to have our wiring inside the engine bay. We'll do that first. Then we're going to have our installation of our display. And finally, we're going to install the brain box and also the GPS puck. So we'll break it up into 3 different zones. So stick with us, we've got a lot to show you. All right, for this first step in the process, we're going to install the wiring that comes from the engine compartment up through the side of the boat and into the helm compartment behind the helm here. You notice in my hand here I've got a bunch of wires. This is going to be the throttle position sensor interface module. This is going to be the starboard side, and it's going to have a connector that goes over to the port side. Really simple, straightforward. We'll use this in just a moment here when we get back to the engine bay. We also have on the floor here, I've got a long cord that came with a gray connector here. This is going to connect back in the engine compartment. We've got a black connector here. It's going to connect up by the brain box, and we'll leave this up near the helm. What I've also done is I've connected it to a long piece of rod here. You can use any kind of rod as long as it's something kind of flexible, and get it in there and kind of bend it around the corner. I'm going to snake this down and get it back to that under the seat area there on the starboard side, and then we'll be able to snake that wire back into the engine compartment. So I'm going to grab my work light and we'll get started. We'll take our rod here. All right, so we've got our wire fished up to the engine compartment now. I'm gonna go ahead and tear this tape off, and we'll take this wire. It's gonna connect over to our throttle interface module here. It'll connect here. Once we get that inside the engine bay. Our next step, we're gonna find a place to connect this wire, run this through. I think I found a really good place for it. We don't have to drill holes if we don't have to. So if you bring the camera around, I'll show you where I found it. Right here. There's a space in between these two PVC boards here. I'm going to try to fish it through there. On this particular boat, it's got a nice little notch right here at the top that allows us to kind of snake it through without making any cuts or taking any bolts loose. We'll come back later on here, by the way, and clean up these wires. But for now, I found a way to snake this through without having to do any cutting, which I'm a big fan of. Here we go. Later, we'll fix those wires and secure them. All right, so now I've got my wire run from the helm back here. We'll put that on pause for a second here. The next step in the manual tells us to come over, and we're going to take each of these throttle position sensors here. We're going to disconnect the wire at the base. Bring the camera in tight here. What we want to do is take this wire that is sitting on the bottom side, and we want to squeeze at the base and then pull it loose. Now I made that look easy because I already did this ahead of time, but you'll squeeze this tab right here, and as you're squeezing, it's going to want to be a little tight. You're going to just jiggle it and it'll come loose. We're going to set this aside. We'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Again, we're going to squeeze on the back side, pulling, and it's going to come loose. Again, the tab, when you grab the back side of that tab, just squeeze right here. You'll see it doing this number right here. All right, we'll set that aside for now. We're going to take our throttle interface module. You'll notice that you have a gray plug and a black plug. We're going to align the gray here. There is a gray, and then if you notice, the black one looks just like the gray one here. So I'm going to take the gray and we're going to plug it in, connected like this. It's imperative that when you click these together, that you press them firmly until you feel that there's a click, and there's going to be a lock. You'll feel it locked together. Once we've got that click, we're going to move this underneath. This little press button here is going to go towards the wall. So I'm going to align it underneath the bottom. We're going to make sure that we hear a click. And I'm going to pinch that one more time just to make 100% sure I got a click. All right, and we'll tug on it firmly. That is indeed a nice solid click there. Both sides are connected. We'll come back in a moment here and we'll adhere this to the wall with some PSA. Wiring situated. And when we're done with our install, we're going to try to adhere right here on this wall. You can see with the camera, we're going to adhere right there. All right, now I'm going to take the other wire. We're going to run it around to the opposite side. Now this wire loom is nice. It looks factory. You'll see me sweating in this Florida sun. It's on Florida heat. It's 10 o'clock at night tonight, and it is still 90 degrees inside this warehouse. I'm just pouring sweat. All right, so we're going to take the wire. We're going to run it up and over. Later on, we'll come back and we'll zip tie it. Bring it around to the opposite side of the engine bay. We're going to take our existing factory cord. We're going to plug it in to the gray, so gray goes to gray. Got a nice click there. That's firm. I'm going to take the other end, the black side. It's going to be with the tab facing the wall. I'm going to press hard. I'm going to click. Pull firm. Feels nice. All right, and then we'll come back later and we'll zip tie all that up nice and clean. Get all those wires from hanging down on imported stuff. Don't want to get it on top of the engine. We'll just wire tie this up in our cleanup step. But you can do that as you see fit. Probably won't show that on this video, but we will definitely do this in a step, kind of a cleanup step. All right, so our wiring is now connected. We're going to take our wire, which ran back from the helm, and we're going to connect it to the throttle interface module. Just take it with the little tabs, line up, and we'll press. Heard a click there, nice and firm. And we will take that wire and pull the slack out. And again, we'll firm that up and zip tie it in just a moment. All right, the next step we're going to do is we're going to take some adhesive. I'm going to adhere this to the wall with some PSA. Your kit's probably not going to come with PSA. I would not recommend putting any screws in that wall, especially on 212X models that have the rigid bags, or even any kind of bag for that matter. I would not recommend putting a screw in that wall. So use pressure sensitive adhesive. If you don't have any, you can get it at Home Depot. Peel and stick adhesive. You want to just clean the surface well with acetone, alcohol, let it dry, and then come back and adhere that, and we'll do that probably as we're cleaning everything up. It's your choice where you want to mount this, but this is probably the best place for it right here up alongside the throttle position sensor. All right, that finalizes the first step. Now we're going to move forward to our next step. We're going to talk about installing the gauge cluster and also the ram mount. All right, in this step of the video, you'll notice I've already got the ram mount mounted on this particular boat. This is a 2018 212X, and we've chosen this spot right here on the side, right beside the control knob, because it puts the gauge easily in the field of view as we're trying to control all of our gauges. It looks factory, it's out of the way. When we push our throttle levers forward, it gets the control just ahead of our hands so that we're not touching it. So I like that spot a lot. What I also like about it is on this particular model, we have this nice little slot here, and that allows us to feed that wire up. And we took all this apart earlier, and I'll show you how that works in a minute here. If you'll hold the camera for me here. We took the dash apart. This allows us to install without drilling any holes. This may be slightly different on your boat, but for us this worked well. We went inside the dash. Back behind, you're going to find a series of probably 8 or so little 9mm bolts with a lock washer and a standard washer. You'll pull those loose, take them off. You will reuse them. You're going to take 4 bolts out of this brow here. They are a 11mm deep well socket. You'll take those 4 bolts loose. That's going to give you the ability to kind of move everything around. Once you get the dash loose, it's just a series of just pulling those nuts and washers off. We get the dash loose. We can take the wire, run it up and over, and if you notice right here, I can take the wire and run it over this corner and back around. And then once I've got that in the spot that I want, I can set the brow back down. We can put the dash back in place, and then we're going to line our bolts back up on the back side. I did not have to disassemble anything. It was just simply just pulling those nuts and washers off, pulling the dash off, and then pushing it back in place. And there's literally no wire, no holes to drill. I really like that a lot. Only wire evident is right here in this corner. If you see on this particular video, it's really nice. You only see just that one little corner right here. Otherwise, the wire is hidden for the most part. So we'll put this on as we're finishing buttoning everything up. We won't show that in this video, but you'll find those nuts and washers on the back side. Really simple to get to. Pull those off, slap it back in place, put them back on, just tighten them down by hand. A little torque's fine. They've got a lock washer on them, so they're not going to come loose. All right, so now we have the gauge in place, we're going to use some PSA, adhere this to the backside. We're going to use some acetone to clean this with, and we're going to use some acetone to clean this with, and then we're going to adhere it in place. So when we get done, this is all going to be real clean and nice, and it'll be finished and professional looking. All right, finished with our gauge installation now. On 24-foot models, you may find that you want to install it over in this area here, which is just fine. I would not recommend using PSA for that portion. I would recommend that you drill holes. And when you mount this ram mount here, what we're going to use, what we did use, was a 1/8 inch drill bit. We drilled 4 pilot holes. We actually put down some masking tape first. Once we had found where we wanted to make our holes, we marked it with a Sharpie, and then we went back through and drilled, and then we added our screws. You can just drill right into it. This is fiberglass, so you can use just a regular old aggressive thread screw that comes with the kit, and then you can just screw it in with a Phillips head screwdriver, and that's what worked for us. Very firm, doesn't move. Probably the best way to do it so you know the gauge isn't going to move around on you. All right, great. So now we're going to move on to the next step, which is going to be our wiring connections inside the dash. All right, so now we've got our wires run. We're going to go ahead and plug everything into the master module here. You'll notice you've got a big plug, and you've got a slightly smaller plug. We're going to go ahead and plug in the smaller one with the little tab here on top to these little notches. Press it. You're going to hear a click. Pull on it to make sure it's firm. Same thing on the other side here. Press. Click. Pull on it to make sure it's firm. Now that we have that plugged in, we are going to turn it upside down, and I'll actually secure this upside down like this. And if you bring the camera up, we've got some holes pre-drilled. We're going to just put it right here with a couple of screws. That'll get it up out of the way and keep it dry, and it won't get snagged when you're putting things in and out of this compartment here. All right, next we're going to run our power wires. This should be a pretty straightforward process here, and then we'll do our GPS after that. You have 2 power wires, or excuse me, a power and a ground, and you've got these little spades here on the ends. So you have a black for ground, a purple for power. What we've done on the dash, you bring the camera around the front here. Behind this panel here, there are 3 9mm nuts and washers. We have already pulled those out. And if you notice, now that we have those out of place there, we've got all of our wiring. So you have 2 key switches down on the bottom here on this boat. You have a yellow with a red wire on both sides, and you can pick either one of those to connect your device to. I'm going to choose the starboard side on this one to run my power wire. We're going to connect the hot wire, which is going to be your purple. It's going to connect over to this yellow wire with the red stripe. What I want to do is I want to take the way this thing works here is you squeeze it with a pair of pliers, and it's going to crimp. I've already got a previous crimp here from a previous mark that I made. What I'll do is I'll take my pliers after I've lined this up here, and we'll crimp it so that the basically that metal piece in there, the metal tab, will pierce, and it's going to allow us to splice into this there. All right, so now we've got that, they call these T-taps here, or something similar to a T-tap. The other end of this has got a little spade, and we're going to plug that spade into the end here. There we go. We've got a nice click there. We've also got a black wire coming out of this harness here, and I'm going to take that wire right here, and we'll do the same thing. Just going to put that right in the middle. Pair of pliers here, and it's good to have a good pair of pliers. It's going to have a lot of pressure on the tip where you can pierce it. You want that protective sleeve to be pierced. There we go. All right, so that's nice and crimped. It's you can feel it click when it locked. We get the black one now. I'm going to take it. I'm going to lock it in place. Wait for a click. There it is. All right, now we have our hot and our ground wire run. We're going to now put this back in place. You have 3 little screws or bolts that are going to line up. And then when we're tightening everything back up, we'll put the nuts and washers back on the backside and tighten all that down. All right, good. So now we have our wiring connected. We're going to now get our GPS puck. One of the things that is specified in the installation instructions was you can put this puck in a couple different places. We've already chosen a spot for ours, but you can use their recommendation or the spot we've chosen. Their recommendation was to simply install it somewhere up on the dash here, where it looks up through the glass, and that's fine. What we like on this particular boat, bring the camera up this way, we have a rail here, and I'm able to pull up this gasket material, and underneath, I'm gonna grab my Phillips head or my screwdriver. I'm able to take this gasket material here and pull this up, and then we have cut a little hole that allows for this wire to run down through and inside like so, and then we're going to put our puck right on the outside here with some adhesive. This is going to make it look real clean and you won't see any wires. You will have to take a little step here with the gasket, this weather stripping here, make yourself a little notch, see this here, to allow the wire to pass through. And that's the only little incision we made there. We bored this hole. I believe this hole here was just shy of a 1/2 inch to allow that little spade there, that little plug to pass through the hole there. And I would recommend siliconing this when you get done. All right, so now we have this in place. Found me a nice spot for it right about there. Now your boat may not have the room that we have here. If that's the case, you may want to do something a little different. Maybe put it inside, on top of the dash, behind the glass. We just like this because it did not require running wires everywhere. I didn't have to drill a big hole in the fiberglass. I don't like drilling holes in fiberglass if I can help it. All right, so we're going to take this weather stripping now, and we're going to put it back in place. And now we'll have a nice clean install here. We'll put some PSA on this, and then this will secure nicely like that. All right, it also comes with that PSA if you see here. So we'll clean and prep that in just a moment, stick that down. Inside, we have one last step to do with the connector here. On the unit, there's a GPS, bring the camera over here. There's a GPS cord coming out of the bottom of that one large gray cord there, and we're going to just align these tabs so that this will click. There it is. All right, so our wires we'll tie these up and zip tie as we're doing our finishing steps. All right, so now let's review. We've installed our wires inside the engine bay. We've run our wires up to the helm. We've connected our display. We're now going to go into the final stages of preparation and cleanup, which is going to be securing PSA, wiping everything down, zip tying, making sure everything works. We do want to go ahead and do a test real quick here to make sure all of our wires come on. I think we're at that stage now where we can do that. So I'm going to turn the batteries on. And if I didn't mention that in the earlier part of this video, you do want to make sure that your batteries are turned off prior to starting the installation. You don't want to have those batteries on while you're doing your installation. All right, so we are on. We're going to go over now. We're going to remove this little layer of protection over the screen and turn the key. And we do have our power on. Everything's working fine. We're going to look for the gauge, make sure there's no error codes on our connect screen. And I'm getting no error codes there, so we're good. All right, so we have a successful install. There is no calibration steps. It's all fly-by-wire, so we should be simply just able to go back through now, clean up, button up, zip tie, make sure all of our adhesives are in place, and we're good to go. So hope this video has been helpful to you. Again, make sure that your batteries are turned off when you start the installation. Once you get done testing, switch your batteries back off. Go ahead and finish everything else up. Make sure you check for good tools. Make sure you don't leave any tools in your engine compartment or anywhere else. do a quick check to make sure that you've got everything secured. I think it's important to note again to make sure that all of your silicone is put in place once you've cut holes like this. Make sure you secure your dash back down in place, tighten all those bolts well so that you don't have any issues with your dash rattling around. Make sure you add your bolts back in place back behind your switch panel here. And that's about it. For more information about the new Perfect Pass system, please feel free to visit us at JetBoatPilot.com. We have tons of information there to help you out with your decision. Again, this is a brand new product. We're super excited about it. It's really promising. It's going to make things a lot easier for those of you guys wanting to go surfing and wakeboarding. So once again, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and we hope it was helpful to you. Thanks. Have a great day.